Hello and good afternoon. So today we're going to continue with the second episode of my Player and Ports series. And today we're going to talk about missions and begin to look at crewing up and that sort of thing. So I'll just pop into Player and Ports. As you can see immediately down in the bottom right hand corner, you'll see that I have 3 missions out currently at the moment and one that says returned. So if you were to click on your captain's log, you'll see here that it says return and the ETA is on the other. So what we'll do is we'll just pop back onto this screen, and then if you go to the ship that says returned, obviously it'll bring up a little box here, and it'll say your ship is returned. You click get results and you are taken to the next screen. Unfortunately, my mission actually failed this time, which can happen. We'll cover that shortly, but I'm just showing you basically the wrong way around, what happens when your missions are completed. So now we'll just go on to actually sending a mission. So as I said before, the various screens that we talked about, and now you'll see down in the bottom right hand corner it says that we have a ship ready to sail. So if we click this, it brings you to this screen here. Now we'll go over what's on all of these options just in a second, but for now you'll see here down at the bottom it says Voyage List. So if we go and select Voyage List, we took over this screen last time around, and this displays the voyages that are available to you, both the special voyages here. As you can see, I've got 3, and as I was saying before, I have the Convict and the Occultist in port, so not all of them will disappear. If I was to select this mission for 5 lacquer, then the XP mission would disappear. But for now, we're just going to look at this mission down here. So when you click on the mission here, you'll see the difficulty rating and you'll see the rewards. So for this particular mission, this is for 1,200 chimes and 600 jade. Now you can see on this little screen here, this is quite an important thing to look at, because it gives you all the information for where your ship is currently set up. Now you see here that we have these 3 categories, which being morale, combat and seafaring. Now for this voyage, you can see that this is a 1 skill only voyage. Now some missions have 2 skills, for instance morale and combat, or morale and seafaring, and indeed it can be combat and seafaring, or it can have all 3. Now typically the more styles, i.e. the more of these 3 you have in one mission, the less you'll need. So for instance, you're not going to get a mission that has combat, morale and seafaring all for 20,000. But for this mission we'll just go with now, we have a requirement of 16,000 seafaring. Now when you obviously start off Player and Ports, when you're back in the first region, the missions won't be anywhere near as high, and in fact they can be considerably less, because the earlier you are on in progression, the less demanding the resources are that you need. So I know this is kind of jumping a little bit past the very beginnings, but we'll just discuss how you actually go about dealing with a mission for now. So if I wanted to kind of crew this one up, and I thought, okay, I want to go for this mission, I need to get myself 16,000 seafaring to make that 100% mission. Now the percentage is overall success chance, so you see it says there. Now if I sent it out with 8%, as I'm sure you can work out, there's not a lot of chance that would come back, whereas if you send it out with 100%, it's always going to come back. The mission at the start of this video that you saw that failed, I sent out on 88%, and even that failed. Now, percentages and whatnot with Jagex, you never know, but I'm sure 88 times 100, then that would be okay, but you never know. So anyway, I digress. So we're going to select this mission as if we were going to try and set it up. So the 3 options you're given here are add effect, edit ship and crew roster. We're going to go and do the edit ship first, because that's what we're kind of trying to look at today. So if I click on edit ship, you're taken to this screen here. Now there's quite a lot of options here, and at first it can be slightly confusing. I'm just going to go over the 5 different types of ship part there are. They all affect obviously the statistics of the ship, i.e. seafaring, combat and or morale if they were in. So for this one we're only interested in seafaring. So the main thing that you're going to want to do is select the correct hull. So if we click on hull, now you'll see a long list of hulls here. I actually have them all unlocked. When you start off, I believe you only actually have the Barnacle's hull, and then you can upgrade these ship parts by buying them. Now I can't actually show you that because I've bought all of the ship parts for my various things, but basically when you click on a section, if you don't have the ship part unlocked here, it would come up with a cost, and generally it will be a cost of, you know, bamboo, gunpowder, black slate, etc. to buy the upgrade. So if we were trying to get the maximum for seafaring, we obviously want to select a seafaring hull. So if you start at the bottom here and look, the selected hull has 50 combat morale and 100 seafaring. Now if I went to the reinforced hull, that's a step up, but you can see it's slightly weighted more towards combat. And then again, if I went to the sleek hull, this one's weighted more towards seafaring. So the idea is that the hulls here all have a slight one type, you know, one statistic is better per hull. So if we go to the very last three hulls that you'll get, which are the Storm Rider hull, the Golden Katana hull and the Blazing Lantern, you'll see that the selected hull has 1,200 seafaring but 500 combat and morale. If I move on to the next one, it's 1,400 combat but the seafaring and morale are lower, and then finally, no surprises, 1,400 morale, but combat and seafaring are lower. So essentially, all of the hulls are weighted towards one of the skills. So there is no hybrid hull, if you like. Every single hull is slightly weighted towards one of the skills. So for us, what we're going to do here is select the seafaring hull. Now, if you look at the stats at the bottom, you'll see then the one that I have equipped here is the Blazing Lantern hull, and that will display equipped here, so you can compare basically. Now you'll see that the selected hull that I'm going for has less morale, i.e. it's in red, and green. The combat is the same, and then it's better on seafaring than it is on the other hull. So you need to worry about the stat that we're after, which is obviously seafaring. So I'm going to select this hull because it has 1,200 seafaring, which is the maximum you can get from any ship hull. So we activate that, and you'll see instantly that the percentage has gone up. Now if you look up the top here, you'll see the four statistics that you are looking for, and obviously my seafaring is still quite low. Speed is something else we'll talk about a little bit later on, but for now we won't concern ourselves with that. It's more about getting the maximum percentage of seafaring. So the other things that you can change are the deck items. Now, yet again, the deck items are kind of tiered up in the three different styles, and these are all pretty much singular amounts, so they don't offer anything else. So if you pick a combat related deck item, it will only give you combat and nothing else. So you can see down here when you start out, you get one that's 100 seafaring. The next one you can buy is morale and then combat. Oh no, sorry, seafaring. And that's morale again, and then you'll get a combat one here. So you need to go through and kind of purchase these. Again, I've got them all already. So if we look down the bottom three are Dragon Skin Rigging, Eastern Relics, and Heavy Cannon 4. So at the moment, this is giving me 1,350 morale. The Eastern Relics are. Now, obviously, we're not interested in morale for this voyage, so we're actually going to go and select Seafaring. And this is the Dragon Skin Rigging, which will give me a 1,350 plus to seafaring. So we activate that. Again, the percentage goes up. Now, the great thing about deck items is the fact that there are two of them. You don't have to upgrade both. So if you buy the item in the deck item 1, let's say you purchase a small crate of food, it will appear on deck item 2. So one of the massive tips that I would say, especially when you're starting out, is to prioritise getting your deck items over anything else. Yes, hulls will benefit you because obviously they give slightly more rounded stats, weighted towards one style. And obviously when you get enough resources, you should get them. But when you're upgrading initially, you need to spend your money very wisely, and I would always recommend going for deck items purely because they give you 2 for the price of 1, basically. So yeah, we're going to select Dragon Skin Rigging. We've done that, and then we click onto the other one here, and it's also on Eastern Relics. So we need to change that over to Dragon Skin Rigging, and again, this will up our percentage to 30 now. Now the other 2 bits of the ship that we need to worry about, or don't in this instance, are the ram figureheads at the front. Now this is where, for me, Player Imports is actually a little bit wrong, and Jagex possibly should sort it out, because Seafaring is slightly weighted against, in so much as the rams and figureheads only benefit combat and morale. So you'll see here, as I go through all of them, it's either combat or morale. There is no positive seafaring influence from the front of the ship. So the last 2 here are 800 combat and 800 morale. Now, these can help you, don't get me wrong, when you're down the line. And if you've got enough resources in a particular region, or you're not saving up, let's say you've got 4,000 slate, which I have, and you're in the next region, so you're actually gaining cherry wood, and you suddenly realise that you can purchase, say, the war ram, which give you a bit more combat. Yeah, sure, go for it. But I would always keep my resources for the deck items first, and then prioritise the hulls. And then if you've got anything left and you want to go for the next bit to give you that boost, sure, upgrade your rams and figureheads, but they don't affect massively. Even until the last 2 here, the best 2 in the game are only a plus 800. Now I know when you're starting out that will seem a lot, but if you look at the first one here, that's only a plus 50. So they're not huge amounts of positivity. So in this case, because we're on Seafaring, we can't actually select one that will help us, so we don't worry about it. The same with Rudders. Again, I've got all the Rudders now, but I've been doing Player Imports for a long time now. Yeah, I've got the best rudder here, and it gives you a plus 1,800 speed rating. Now, if I go and select the worst rudder, now this is going to put the time duration up a lot. You'll probably think, well, this is really worthwhile getting, because it's just jumped up 3 hours. Now, yes, I can see, while people might think, well, God, I've got to get myself a rudder that will, bring down my voyage time. Completely the opposite. Don't get the rudders until you've got virtually everything else. They just simply aren't worth it. Because if you think about it this way, if you send a mission out on 50% and it takes you 9 hours, now if you had the best rudder in the game, you send the same mission out on 50% and it takes 6 hours. If the mission fails, all you've done is sped up the mission failing. You're not improving your chances of success in a mission. Obviously, if you send it out on 95% and it takes the duration of the mission down, then great. But I suppose what I'm trying to say is to put the emphasis on gaining better stats for your ship and indeed your crew, and then worry about the rudders, right at the end. I didn't buy all the rudders until I was well into the last region, and that's something I would really, really recommend not to do, or do, depending on which way you look at that. So yeah, we'll just select that back because that's the one I have. So for a seafaring mission, as you can see, even with the best, all of the final ship parts in the game that I've got, you can see that I've got myself 30% seafaring so far. So now you're thinking, well, how do I get my seafaring higher? 30% is not going to succeed very often. So this is where we obviously start talking about the crew. Now, this is going to be slightly complicated for me to explain because my crew are obviously all the best crew from the very final region. So it's going to be slightly complicated for me to explain going back to the previous regions, but hopefully you'll get the gist of what I'm talking about, and I can try and show you and emphasize using the RuneScape wiki. So if we click on crew here, now you'll think initially, well, why have I got so few crew? That's because they're all being sent out on other missions. Now, on the screen here, we have up the top, this row here is the crew that are currently selected for the voyage. Obviously, these guys here are, you can see from the stats, they are morale characters. I'm gonna not go into the crew too much because I'm going to save that for another mission. But for now, I'm just going to talk about the class they are and then not worry necessarily about which region they come from and all the rest of it. But you can see here, this crew member is very, very heavily weighted towards morale. Well, it has 20 seafaring and 2,100 morale. So we wouldn't really want to send this guy out. Now, to get rid of him, you can either drag it down to this little red button here, or right-click and unassign, which is something I only figured out a few days ago because I'm a fail. So now we've taken all the crew away. Now on the left-hand side here, we've got the captains that are available. Now you can see here the captain I have selected is weighted more towards morale. Now this is a good thing about captains, and again we'll talk about this when I go onto the crew and captains. They are sort of hybrid units because they feature all four statistics if you include speed, but they will always generally be weighted to one skill. And in this case, this is my best morale captain. And the guy below, you can see, is slightly less good, but again is weighted towards combat. So if I were to be trying to send the seafaring ship out, I wouldn't be able to because I don't have the right captain. So if we click onto the crew roster here, you'll just see all of the crew units I have. Now you'll see here, when I look at this guy, Captain Silver I think he's called, this is my best seafaring captain. And that's a level 8 character. And then all of these units here are seafaring units. Now they are currently out on a mission, so I can't actually use them. And as you'll see here, these little markers in the left-hand corner display which boat they're on. So all these guys are on a boat, and neither of these. And these guys are on 4, 2, and 1. So you can see the 3 missions I have out, they're already out. So if we pop back out of this and back into the ship here, you'll see that I can't actually send a seafaring mission out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the remaining crew I have and think, all of these guys are morale. Okay, and I've got a high morale captain. So I'm going to pop all of these guys into the crew like this. You can only drag them in. You can swap characters like this. Generally, you drag them up into there. And this will give me a lot of morale. So for these guys, 2,100, 600, blah, 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 all the way through to 2,000. Now, what we need to do is think, right, we don't want to do a seafaring mission because I can't. So we're going to go and look what I've got available in my special missions, and you'll instantly see the one that's popped up here for morale. Now the boat that I have currently has an 87% success chance, and that's based on 1,449 out of 1,600. The reward here would be 25,000 experience in thieving, but I'm actually going to go for this one instead. Now you'll see this is 5 lacquer, and this is jumped up to 20,000, which is quite a lot more. So what we're going to do is go back into the ship and pop back on our morale-based things. So obviously change it to seafaring, and we're going to put this back to morale, and you can see here straight away the stat's going to improve by the selected one. So we'll activate that up to 74%, and we'll do the same with the ones that we changed. So instead of being on dragon skin rigging, we'll go for Eastern Relics. And then we'll do the same here, Eastern Relics again, and that takes me up to 88%, which is what I was talking about earlier when I said our mission failed, because it was a 20,000 requirement and I sent it out with 88%. So now that we've got all of the crew in the right place and we've got all of the right ship stats, there is nothing else that I can actually do to improve the success of this mission in terms of my crew units and my ship. Now the one thing that I can do is if we pop back to the Voyage List. Now I know I said to you earlier there are these 3 buttons here. Crew roster, which just takes you to that crew screen, which shows you all of your crew rather than the ones that are available. But we'll deal with that in the next episode. So we pop back into the ship. Yeah, and we'll see. We go to the Voyage List again. You'll see here, crew roster edit ships, the one we've been to, and this one here that says add effect. Now if we go on this, you will see all of these effects here. Now I don't actually have any of them, as it says times 0. These give 10% speed, morale, combat, seafaring, protect crew, 50% crew XP, and 10% rewards and penalties. Now, again, I'll probably cover these in a bit more depth for now. The only other thing I could do to improve the success of this mission would be to add, let's say, a 10% morale ration pack. Now, I just click that and it would activate. That would jump me up to 10% of 17. That would take me to nearly 20,000. Now, unfortunately, I can't do that. But that's the only other thing that we can add on to make the success of this voyage better. So for now, what we're going to do is actually just send this out. So we've selected the mission here. We're on the right ship. We've edited the ship and put the crew on that we can. And then it displays how long it's going to take, percentage success. So we click send, confirm, and then the ship is gone. Now you'll see what I was talking about here and in the previous video, that because I had 2 voyages available for the convict, now I selected one of them, now the other one has disappeared. But because the occultist is still in the port, and that one is still available to me. So that's something worth noting for you know, for your adventurers, as they're called. But again, we'll talk about adventurers a little bit more in another video. But for now, this is just trying to give you an example of sending out ships. And in quite a basic way. Again, I know I've skimmed over quite a lot of what you might think will be important information, but I'm just trying to break all of the sections of player imports down so that we can kind of get a really broad view of the right way to do things, rather than just chucking all of the information at you in one go. You know, it might take a little bit longer to get it all in and seem a bit sort of tenuous, but I promise it'll be worth it when we get to the end and I've kind of showed you everything, because hopefully then you'll be equipped to really be very efficient at player imports and get those player import armors. So I will say goodbye for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. As ever, please leave me a comment if there's anything that you don't understand or want my advice about, or if you think this is crap, that's great. Please tell me. I would love to know. So goodbye for now.